it's all well and good having a small beer, but you need some flavour in there. So is it worth drinking? Is it flavourful? I say Hi guys, it's Jim with another episode of Beers of the British Isles. On today's episode, we're going to be drinking Mann's Brown Ale. This one's probably a crowd splitter. I've known this beer affectionately for years and years, growing up in the working in the Labour Club where I used to collect glasses as a teenager. This beer was very popular, everybody drank it, it was kind of like your quintessential working man's drink. But I haven't seen it anywhere else. And the reason for that became very clear to me when I found out that it was brewed by the Thomas Hardy-Burtonwood Brewery, which is a mile and a half from the house that I grew up in. So I guess rather than it being sort of everyone's favourite beer, maybe it was everyone's closest beer. That being said, this was in the 2000s, not in the 1940s, so I guess there were other beers on offer at that point. Thomas Hardy-Burtonwood Brewery, like I say, brewers of Mann's Brown Ale. They're an old brewery. Started in, I think, the 1890s, thereabouts. Started originally as the Thomas Hardy Brewery and the Burtonwood Brewery. In 1964, those two giants collided, and I guess they thought if one name was good, two must be better. And they just smashed their names together, and thus was formed the Thomas Hardy-Burtonwood Brewery. I guess if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Now they're still going, I believe. They only have a few sort of brand beers of their own. You know, this Mann's Brown Ale isn't even originally their recipe. It's originally from a different brewery, the Whitechapel Brewery, founded at some point. So they only have a few brands left. They're now basically a contract brewery. But it's good that these old kind of historic buildings, at least, are still in use making beer. Now, when I say this is an old brewery, the beer kind of reflects this to look at it. I mean, if you look at this bottle, it's a very no frills bottle, isn't it? Just a big old brown bottle, red label, nothing else. You don't need any more information than that. Simply says Mann's Brown Ale. I don't even think there's the original brown ale. I really don't know about that. But there's very little marketing on there, because I guess if you're gonna drink it, they'll sell it to you. If you're not, they probably don't care. So it's very simple. It's very traditional. I think it's very iconic. So this is the original brown ale. I always thought that this was a mild, if I'm honest. I've always heard of it referred to as Mann's Mild, not Mann's Brown Ale. I mean, there's not really much in that fight, but I guess there's only one way to find out whether I think it's a mild or a brown. Let's dive in. Okay, I'm in the glass. The beer's cold. The beer may, if I'm honest, be a little bit too cold, or a little bit colder than I would have liked to have drank it, really. Doesn't seem to be affecting the appearance. The appearance is gorgeous, rich, deep colour. Again, if I hold this to the lights, I can see through it. I can see that there's kind of a deep reddish brown hue to it, all the while holding on to this kind of creamy coloured head, which I always love. If there's colour in the head, it usually means you're in for a treat, I think. So, like I said, this beer professes to be the original brown ale. It's a 2.8% brown ale. I already said that I've always heard this referred to as Mann's Mild. They're obviously going Mann's Brown Ale. At 2.8%, I think that you can sort of safely call this a mild, if I'm honest. You know, brown ales, It doesn't really matter because mild and brown ale are both styles that I really, really like and that are pretty much underexplored. I think that Cloudwater Brewery in Manchester are probably the only brewery that I can think of that are doing anything sort of special with brown ale these days. I mean, like them or not, they're the only ones around doing it. So if you're into brown ales, maybe check out those guys. But we're not talking about them today. We're talking about the Thomas Hardy-Burtonwood Mann's Brown Ale. Now, I have very little information about this other than the fact that it contains barley malt and wheat. So, I mean, I guess that's it, you know, a big old barley base, probably some roasted grains in there. I'd probably say more like a chocolate malt rather than say a roasted barley or black patent or something harsh like that. Because brown ales typically are nice and malty and sweet with a lot of hop aroma to them. They're kind of like a nice go-between between a pale ale and a stout. So if you're not a big stout fan, but you like to dip your toe, brown ale might be for you. So let's see what we got. Wow, you know what? For 2.8%, that is really good. So there's not a lot of bitterness to it, but there doesn't have to be. If this is a mild or a brown ale, you don't need it to pucker your mouth up with bitterness. You kind of want it to be a little bit malty, a little bit sweet, like I say, and it definitely is that. There is a touch of a floral hop flavour to it, but by and large the hops just aren't really present. And again, that's fine by me. If this were, say, an American brown ale rather than English brown ale or a mild, you would expect much more of a hop profile, but I'm not really missing it here, to be honest. What I am getting is a lovely caramel sweetness, and I mean that. It tastes like they've kind of just stirred a big glob of caramel in there. It's so nice and sweet, and it just coats your whole mouth. It's very well carbonated, but it comes out of a bottle, so it's going to be. The body is a weird one because it's low body, but it's a very small beer, so it feels bigger than I thought it would, but it's still not that substantial, if that makes sense. All right then, let's sum this one up. Let's tell you what I think of Mann's Brown Ale / mild. Firstly, the appearance, like I said, is just great. I mean, my glasses that I've been complaining about, that have become a bit of a meme at this point, have ruined the head, but you can see that just the slightest agitation and the head fluffs back up. And like I say, it has got that sort of cream, off-white coloured head, which always is good to see in a beer like this. It's nice and dark. The aroma's almost like treacle. The aroma is dark, okay? There's very little hop to it. If a touch of floral hop, something like a dash of Fuggles or something like that. Probably not spicy like a Golding is, but yeah, just kind of a little bit floral. The flavour, the malt bill, the sweetness, the mouthfeel to this is where it's all at. And like I say, though it's dark, you don't get a lot of those kind of coffee flavours or even toffee flavours. This is just real nice and sweet caramel with just a slightly bitter edge. Like I say, it's 2.8%. There's not a lot of alcohol in this, so you don't need an awful lot of bitterness to balance that out. I know I always talk about the ratio, but at some point you kind of need to consider the absolutes as well. So this has probably got just enough bitterness to balance the sweetness out to the point where they wanted it to be, if that makes sense. So I'm gonna rate this, and I'm gonna rate it 0 to 10. But I think with a beer like this, you can't just take the beer at face value. You can't just say, what is this beer? You need to say, it's 2.8%. Is it worth drinking? It's all well and good having a small beer, but you need some flavor in there. So is it worth drinking? Is it flavorful? I say 100% this is worth drinking and it's flavorful. In fact, this would be like a great weeknight drink, a great sort of, I mean, even if you were driving, you could probably have 2 of these spaced out. I mean, this is the smallest bottle of Mann's Brown Ale I've ever seen, but normally they come in much bigger bottles than this. But it's definitely worth drinking, and so because of that, on a scale of 0 to 10, considering it as a mild, not a brown ale, I'm gonna give it a solid 8 out of 10. It's sweet, it's kind of creamy in your mouth, it's got that lovely cream colored head. I say that everyone should head down to B&M, where I bought this beer. Yeah, we're in the B&M realm, and grab yourselves one of these, because I think it's really, really great. I've never had this before, but I highly recommend it. Whilst you're drinking it, stick on Land Down Under by Men at Work and enjoy. If you like it, if you like this mild, head down to your local bottle shop and ask them for a mild. They won't stray very far from this. This is quite typical, I think. But they're lovely beers, well worth considering, well worth exploring. So please guys, head on down to B&M, grab yourselves a Mann's Mild and enjoy. Cheers.